Hello everybody, welcome. I'm No02, thank you for watching this video. In the spirit of the last deck video that I made, the one and done, it's sort of like clutch deck for acts 1 to 3, we have a support deck for acts 1 through 3. That other deck, the one and done deck, was about you being the hero, but you having all the tools necessary to beat all of the finales one by one by one. We have the use speed so that you can be the person doing the field cannon if that needs to be the case. You had extra grenade damage for blowing up the ogres on Act 2, extra grenade damage for the end of Act 3, movement speed so you can run around all the big arenas like T5 or Broken Bird or the body dump, things like that. Right, that deck was about you being the guy or the girl, the clutch. We're taking a little bit of a step away from that here with this support deck. We're still going to have some of the same basic tools that I like to have in every deck. We'll also have couple extra grenades, some movement speed, but not quite as fast as we could. You would have to be really very good, as well as have a good secondary, a Beretta or a Tech 9, with a good movement stack on it in order to have enough speed to run faster than these sprinting zombies with this deck. And for me, that hurts because I play solo queue and being the support person just doesn't always really work. If you want to be support in solo queue, I think you need to sort of dip your toe into it just a little bit because you end up becoming too dependent on random people who you can't out heal people who are worse than bots. Anyways, here we still have some of those basic tools, but this is really more for those of you who like to be the support player. The scenario in which this deck is going to find the most success is when you're in that character select screen, or when you're, when you're in that character select screen, somebody on your team where you go, hey, what does the team need? And they go, we could use a support. It's a deck that could work literally on all three acts. Kind of nice so that you can have your numerous decks that you like, but if you don't really like support, but you should have a support deck because every once in a while you end up needing to fulfill that role. Let this be the deck because it will work literally on all three acts rather comfortably. One thing that I need to mention here real quick, Experienced EMT, as far as I can tell, no longer healing trauma. Don't worry about it. We like it for the stamina and stamina regen. Okay, let's get into this real fast. Notice here we don't have our usual hazard pay. We have support scavenger. We are going to be frugal with our copper. Be a little frugal with it. I'm usually a big fan of you should leave the safe room with as many. If you can afford it, you should be leaving the safe room with all your slots filled. It makes looting much faster, helps you to focus in on what you need and what you don't need. And of course, you might think, well, I'll just loot stuff on the go. Chances are, as you go through the mission, you're going to take damage, use what you have, and still end up looting what you find on the map anyways. But we're going to be pretty short on copper. This deck is not about buying medkits and leaving the safe room with lots of medkits. This deck is going to be about taking advantage of support scavenger. So pretty much, you're never going to buy support items from the safe room. The only exception is going to be like the finale, where you should jump down out of the finale safe room with as many medkits as you can carry and things like that. But for the most part, we're going to be relying on support scavenger for the bulk of our economy. And in order to take advantage of that economy, you can't buy support scavenger card. You can't buy support accessories for the most part. We are going to be rather poor unless our team is running copper cards themselves or complete the secondary objective, and that can be quite hard. And honestly, that's the weakest thing about this deck. The weakest thing about this deck is just not having a reliable source of copper. every map has a secondary objective, and if you complete it, that's an extra 500 copper. That's more copper than everyone's surviving. It can be hard to achieve that, though, with randoms. So just keep that in mind. But for the most part, I've been finding that you have bandages and pain pills galore. You will be providing the team with tons of health. And that's sort of what I mean here by, like, we're taking a step away from the person who can solo clutch all the missions, because we are making a financial sacrifice to support the team better. Grenade pouch per usual, just to kill tall boys and things like that. If you're really tight on money, I would recommend flashbangs over grenades, but just keep in mind that flashbangs get worse as your team dies around you, because you lose damage necessary to kill the tall boy. Because the point of the flashbang is that you flashbang the tall boy, and then it gives your team plenty of time to mag dump into the tall boy. If teammates are dead, you lose that damage, or if people on your team, nobody's running a good damage build. The flashbang is team dependent, but can be a slightly cheaper substitute for grenades. Then we pick up Fleet of Foot, Experienced EMT, and Cross Trainers. So for Act 1, we set up our economy, get our grenade, and then we're building up to the crossing, per usual. Act 2, our first 4 cards are Call to Arms, and then Handyman is card 5. So Act 1 and Act 2 are really nice in that they pretty much look the same for the first 5 cards, because they both have a movement-intensive finale in their first 5 cards. And when I design my decks, I always just encourage you. The cards are in specific places for a reason. You're always picking your leftmost. What looks left to you guys? I'm staring into a camera. The leftmost card. Just to keep it simple, keep it easy. You don't need to spend too much time on that screen. Blah, 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 blah. For Act 3, this is further afield, your first 5 cards. And this is going to basically give you all the movement you need for the most part to do those big open maps where you move fast enough to dodge tall boys and run around and get from... Hopefully you can get from being trapped in the cornfield to a decent corner and things like that. But pretty quickly here, this movement speed will begin to fall short as you get deeper into the campaigns. Partly because we pick up double grenade pouch, but also because you'll get sprinting zombies more and more regularly. Eventually those sprinting zombies will pretty much keep pace with you. Card 6 is Clean Sweep for Act 1. We're just picking up double grenade pouch now. Not a super big deal for Act 1 to get extra grenades here. Just nice universal card though for Act 1. And any pockets, support slots, extra grenade slots, those are universally good almost no matter what. And they're pretty much good almost no matter what place you put them. But for card 6, Act 2, that is pipe cleaners, and that is a super tight, confined area, so having extra grenades or flashbangs to hold off tall boys when you're trapped in a corner in the sewers, very, very, very convenient. For Act 3, this is also really nice because you have the Blazing Trail holdout. You're going to spend most of Blazing Trails probably like in a bathroom, where you need to hold out in the bathroom at the recreation center because your team moves too slow, and you have the flaming zombie horde chasing you. And then you have the bathrooms at the infested swimming pool with the nest. So having these extra grenade slots will just help reassure that you can comfortably do those holdouts for Blazing Trails as well. So really nice for Act 2 and Act 3. Now we're at Bookworms for Act 1, Amped Up. Amped Up, again, sort of a universally good card, almost no matter what. There is one forced horde event on Bookworms with the entering the hotel. You gotta board up the windows, a lot of opportunity for Amped Up to trigger. This is Hinterland for Act 2. Entering the flooded warehouse. Hardest part of Hinterland, that door is almost always alarmed when going into the warehouse, so having this pretty much means that a nice little buffer of health for your team while entering the warehouse. As well as there's a nest on Hinterland as well, so triggers 4 more times there. So guaranteed minimum 125 health from Amped Up, just for one person. 125 multiplied by 4. Whatever, 500 points of health, easy. For Act 3, this is Cabins by the Lake. It's a decent card. I mean, Amped Up's always good, but for the most part, I haven't found the forced horde event at the end with the battery to be super duper difficult. But again, Amped Up triggers there, nice little burst of health as you're running to the final stretch of running the final stretch of Cabins by the Lake. Now we pick up Poultice. Poultice is card 8 is all these names. Barroom Blitz. For Act 2. No particular reason to pick up Poultice here, other than that we just have time to do it, really. The thing about stacking damage cards, or stacking all the support cards, or stacking the melee cards, there's actually a lot of redundancy here, right? We want to get our Barrette to do lots and lots of damage, where you just need to pick damage card after damage card after damage card, and it sort of just gets picking. There's really a big difference between picking silver bullets on this map and then picking up large caliber rounds on this map. Like, there's not a whole lot of justification as to when you pick up those particular cards. And the same thing is true of support. You sort of just get more health, and this gets more health, right? There's only a handful of support cards that sort of diversify themselves from the pack. You know, like support scavengers, sort of like quantity over quality. It sort of makes sense, right? Poultice turns pain pills into bandages. Nothing else in the game does that. But for the most part, because we have our movement speed, we have our resource card, we have our extra grenades, we're sort of just assuming here, even though extra reload speed or crowd control would be quite nice on Barroom Blitz, we're just going to have to rely on our teammates that killing zombies is relatively easy. Get yourself in a corner, aim your crosshairs at a choke point, and zombies will die. You don't need lots of movement speed, or you don't need lots of reload speed to do that. So we're going to forego any extra crowd control that we could potentially offer our team and just, for the support, committing to the support, picking up Poultice. Now Poultice and Support Scavenger, great combo. Lots of bandages, lots of pills. Poultice turns your bandages pretty much into basic medkits and pain pills into bandages. You're going to be healing and healing and healing and healing. You may notice now at this point that we really don't have any more healing. We don't really need it. We're going to switch gears a little bit. We're still supporting the team, but in a different way now. Another thing that we need to notice is that because EMT, as far as I can tell, is not healing trauma like it did. At least EMT is not healing trauma in offline mode, guaranteed, because I've tested it 4 or 5 times now. EMT does not heal trauma offline mode. I couldn't really tell in online mode because there's always so many effects going on and things like that. But I don't think EMT is healing trauma anymore, so you'll notice we don't have any trauma heal in this deck. We have sort of spam, turn all the little stuff into good stuff, and that's about it. We're sort of just relying on Amped Up. You don't suffer trauma damage if you have temporary health. If temporary health absorbs all of the damage that you have suffered in this particular instance, you don't suffer any trauma from that damage. So, because we have Poultice, you pick up pain pills, slap them on somebody. Just slap them on. Anyone who's slightly hurt, just hurt a little bit, but pain pills. Just pick up, right? Drop whatever you're carrying, pick up the pain pills, slap them on somebody, keep going, right? Just over and over and over again. So we don't really have trauma recovery in this deck. We have temporary health as trauma prevention. And I just find that trying to squeeze in extra trauma cards recovery just doesn't really work. It's just these first couple of groups of cards are really tight, and so we would need to get rid of Support Scavenger and get Copper Scavenger so that we can afford medkits and have medkits reliably, and then pick up like Medical Professional somewhere. And I just felt it was too slow, it just didn't work. I feel like this is way more reliable. It's going to feel like you're doing way more healing too, because you just have tons and tons of small stuff all the time healing people. It's kind of great. And so Poultice for Act 1, 2, and 3. No particular reason as to why we're picking it up here. It's just an all-around good card. For Act 3, this is Garden Party. And so just, there's going to be lots of splash damage, so just You literally see any support item, just pick it up, pain pills, slap it on somebody. Pain pills are the best here, etc. Card 9 is Special Delivery in Act 1. Special Delivery is always dark, has the Dark Corruption card, which is the Mutated Snitchers, and it's nighttime. So just having the ability to ping them and outline them is really convenient. There's also a chance for a boss to spawn on Special Delivery, so giving the entire team 10% damage boost is really convenient, really nice. And this is how we're switching gears. We're going to have Marked and Shredder for that full team support damage, etc. Marked for Death on Act 2 is the Clog, another map where there's a boss spawn potential, as well as a Fog card, the Hag spawn as well. So just nice convenience as far as dealing with bosses. And for Act 3, this is T5, and so ideally we're the person on the staircase. We have all the grenade slots in the world to do it. Holding off the Horde is easy on the staircase because they get funneled. So you'll be burning grenades on tall boys, hopefully with Marked for Death and teammates who are running semi-decent builds. You should be able to save a couple of grenades here or there maybe by pinging a mutation and being able to burst it down before it gets to you guys. Cold brew coffee. Picking this up on Act 1 for the diner. Just extra reload speed is nice for the diner holdout. If you guys are poor and don't have wire and things like that, then reload speed becomes kind of critical on the diner. If you have plenty of wire, then the diner is incredibly boring. On Act 2, this is Broken Bird. Extra little bit of use speed is actually really, really nice. And when there's a lot of potential for constant pressure on your team, being able to like pop bandages extra fast and pain pills extra fast and things like that on your teammates while you're sort of on the go, as well as use Doc's. If you're playing Doc's field bandages also take advantage of use speed, things like that. So it's a nice little convenient catch-all card here that I love picking up on Broken Bird on Act 2. For Act 3, at this point we really have all the basic tools that we're going to use for the most part. A Friend in Need has nothing particularly special going on that map, so again, just a nice card overall to pick up, fill the gap here. Card 11, Shredder. Act 1, this is Bad Seeds. Between Marked for Death and Shredder now, we're sort of hoping that we don't need to burn grenades out in the open. The tall boy's charging your team down or a crusher, you ping it, you unload your magazine. Should mention, would highly recommend that you run either an AR or an SMG with this build. But of course, if you got a Glock Auto, then you can run a sniper rifle as well, and you just know that, oh, I'm going to Glock Auto the crusher first, and then switch to my sniper rifle, and then I get the advantage of it as well. But the point is, we're hopefully giving our team enough of a damage boost here that we can basically save grenades from time to time when we're on those big open maps. For Act 2, we're beginning the boss rush. This is Heralds of the Worm Part 1. And so it's kind of nice that we just completed our damage boost for the team, ping the ogre, shred it, and hopefully your team can take care of the rest because you're the support. Act 3, this is making the grade, and sort of also very conveniently, there's a guaranteed ogre on that map, so if your team stops to kill the ogre, you've given your entire team a 25% damage boost. We are supporting. Card 12. We're sort of getting to the point now where, similar to that one and done deck where we had use speed cards here, we had headband magnifier, right? But if you're in Act 2 or Act 3, you don't really need that card. So you would start floating it and pick the other cards in your deck. We're sort of getting to that point here. Fire in the Hole for Hell's Bells. I would actually recommend you pick up this card for Hell's Bells here. It's nice that if you can save grenades until you get to the church, that's best case scenario. But once you're in the church, there's a lot of potential to splash damage yourself. So this will compensate for that by healing you. But also, too, if you're running through the forest and you need to burn a grenade to save yourself, then, of course, throw a grenade at your feet pretty much. Temporary health absorbs the majority of that damage, and you get a speed boost. You can zoom to the cabin or out of the woods or whatever. For Act 2, this card isn't going to get a whole lot of value, but I still recommend picking it up because This is Heralds of the Worm Part 2. And pretty much you're out in the open for the majority of that fight. And if your team doesn't have enough damage to burst down the ogre quickly, the fight's going to last a long time. And so if you ever get caught or trapped, you're going to have the ability to basically throw a grenade at your feet, speed away, keep yourself healthy, and kill a horde and things like that. So this is basically like our primary tool of survival if things are not going well in Heralds of the Worm Part 2. But then when you get to Grave Danger, a lot of potential for splash damage there, so just the occasional grenade throw giving your temporary health. Especially if you're the person, if you have enough money at Grave Danger to buy tons and tons and tons of flashbangs, you become immortal because every flashbang heals you. So just a nice flat card to get here. For Act 3, this is Road to Hell. And this is a great card for Road to Hell because once you're at the very, very end, you need at least 1 or 2 grenades for the gate run at the end of Road to Hell. And having the ability to throw a grenade, blow up a corner so that you can then open up space and then speedy zoom through with our 20% movement speed, really, really, really convenient, really nice. On your mark. So now this is the card that you ignore for Act 3 if you're on Act 3. For Act 1, this might look a little strange, but right, this is a resource generation card. We care about the ammo that we gain when an alarm is triggered. But we don't really need it until this point. Hopefully someone else is also running on your mark. But for the most part, Abandon is a very long mission, and there's a lot of strain on your resources on Abandon because you have to fight your way through the gas station, fight your way to the infested house, do all the hordes in the infested house, hold off at the tow truck, run up the alleyway to the second house, hold off the horde in the second house, and then fight an infinite horde as you're going up the abandoned mine shaft. A lot of shooting, a lot of throwing. We're going to make sure we're supporting the team here, and that we're going to give them ammo. People love to just burn their ammo. I've watched people literally tonight unload entire magazines of their AR and kill 2 zombies. Why? Why? But basically, we're going to give our team lots and lots of ammo. And the thing about resource generation cards, you typically think in terms of, oh, I need to pick the resource generation card earlier in the campaign, because then they generate more value over time. This card is here specifically just because Abandon is a huge strain on your resources, so we just need the card that gives us extra resources when they become in demand. For Act 2, this can be the same thing. You have the ability to buy ammo in the safe room at the start, but beyond that, there's that 1 ammo crate in the church, and then that's it. That's all the ammo you get. So having the ability to trigger on your mark each time you kill a snitch, like 5 guaranteed triggers, very, very, very convenient. Highly recommend that if you're worried about ammo, everyone on your team can open up their inventory, click each of their ammo types once, and then you trigger a snitch. And that's going to guarantee that everyone on your team gets maximum value out of the 50% ammo gain. If you don't want to tell your teammates to do that, you can do it yourself. And just be sure that every time a snitch is being killed, you're not full ammo on anything, because then that ammo gained is wasted. Kind of a neat little trick though that we can do. We can technically generate health infinitely. For a map like the Diner, where the horde effect, the horde only triggers amped up or on your mark once, there's typically a lot of alarmed police cars in the Diner parking lot. If you can manage to not trigger any of them before you start the Diner holdout event, you can then start the generator, start the event, and in the middle of it, somebody can just jump up and shoot the cop car and trigger that alarm, and it will trigger an additional horde on top of the infinite one that's going. You'll get the audio cue, and on your mark and amped up will trigger again, so you can actually sort of strategically choose when to trigger those alarmed cars to generate extra resources in the middle of the diner holdout if you need to. Things like that. On your mark, though, completely useless, I would say, for Act 3. Don't pick this up for Body Dump. Infinite Horde. It only triggers once, and there's typically ammo and extra stuff sort of just lying randomly throughout the Body Dump arena anyways. So I'd highly recommend do not take On Your Mark now for Body Dump. Which is kind of funny because in some older videos, when On Your Mark gave your team movement speed, I was like, this is literally the only mission in the entire game where On Your Mark actually makes sense, where you can open up the safe room door and just, with one card, get a huge boost to movement speed and run past the ogre. Well, it does something entirely different now. But for Act 3, float this card. You don't need this card. For Act 3, pick up Superior Cardio. For Acts 1 and 2, if you're on your... For Act 2 specifically, if you're on your 14th card, it's because you've died. Superior Cardio is not really going to help you at all in Act 2, but it gives you 5 points of health. So 5 health is universally important. Same thing for Rolling Thunder. I would say don't pick up... If once you get the Rolling Thunder, this is your 14th card, don't take this card, just take Well Fed. Slightly better, gives the team more health, the team more durability so that you can buy more time for the person doing the field cannon, which should hopefully not be you. Hopefully you're not the most U-speed person on the team with your cold brew coffee. Right? But Superior Cardio, critical to have for Body Dump. And then Well Fed. So if you're on Act 3, you float On Your Mark pretty much forever. If you're on Act 2, you'll take everything eventually, just because it gives you health. And for Act 1, you do the same thing. You'll take everything eventually if you get there. So, this is it. This is a support deck. We dip our toe into being support EMT, Amped Up, Poultice, and then we go damage support, Marked for Death and Shredder. Then we go On Your Mark for the ammo when we most need it. And then Well Fed. Right? And so we just sort of dip our toe, nothing too crazy. You can't out heal bad teammates. And once your teammates are dead, if you're running a 100% support deck, once your teammates are dead, you become useless. And also too, if you think about it, like, you really don't need, if you're going to be using medkits or, like, Poultice is like more than enough extra healing. EMT bag a lot of the times is overkill. So let me know what you guys think of this deck. Makes sense if you feel like it needs to be more supporty and things like that. I'd appreciate it. Well, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you in the future.